Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching this in the world. I hope you guys are doing okay. The anger and bitterness towards Tekken 8 is continuing to grow, and Arslan has once again expressed his disdain for the way Tekken 8 has been designed. But not everyone understands his take, nor do they agree with it, for those that do understand it. Some people think he's whining over absolutely nothing. He did recently lose again, and there seems to be a pattern of him having small outbursts on Twitter every time he does lose. But I want to try and give my perspective on the situation and why I kind of agree with him. Now, Arslan tweeted out saying, "The state of Tekken is extremely volatile right now. The more I play the game, the more depressed I become. It feels like the game has devolved into a single launcher followed by 50-50 mix-ups, and that's it. The game needs systemic changes more than balance changes IMO." Now, first things first, if I'm being completely honest with you guys, if you're getting depressed over a video game, you do need to go outside. It is just a game. I want people to remember that even though we are talking about games on here, and even though we might express things that we don't like in games, they are still video games. They should not be depressing you. That being said, in 2024, I think it's pretty fair to say that Tekken and Street Fighter are in their coin flip era. If we just focus on Tekken for a second, Tekken has always been a game where one mistake could lead into a huge combo and put you in a position where getting up off the floor is extremely difficult. It could mean life or death at that point. Or even worse yet, you find yourself next to a wall and it's even bigger problems for you. So why does Arslan feel this way about Tekken 8 when high damage combos or even super damaging singular moves like the Death Fist have always been a part of Tekken? Well, I think it really comes down to how you get there rather than what happens when you get there. If you go back to Tekken 7, it would be fair to say that having a strong defense paid dividends for the player because you could force your opponent to whiff a lot more, and playing a counter hit heavy style was definitely promoted more because you didn't feel like you were going to constantly get caught by phantom hitboxes or moves that are tracking or realigning to you constantly. In Tekken 7 or even Tekken Tag 2, getting caught once could cause huge problems, but it didn't really feel like you were forced into the situation or made to stand still because of a Super Saiyan mechanic that gives massive reward for minimal risk. The aggressiveness of Tekken 8 can be exciting for some people, and obviously when you're sitting back and you're watching it, it can be exciting for people to watch, but it becomes hyper frustrating for the player because options are being taken away from them. Essentially, in Tekken 8, it feels like you're not in the fight sometimes. That's the difference between a 50-50 and a forced 50-50. A regular 50-50 means that you're dealing with a mix-up that could land you in serious problems, but you still have a plethora of options and you just need to focus on the right one to escape the situation. A forced 50-50, however, means that you do not have any of these options and simply have to stand there and take whatever is coming to you. Your only real options are stand high or duck low, and that's it. In a game that offers you so much, that's a shockingly low number of options for a situation that will basically decide the round. Arslan is pushing for a systemic change in Tekken 8, but I just don't think the Tekken developers are going to entertain it to the level people might be looking for. It's also worth acknowledging that this new direction for Tekken has garnered interest from people that would have never played the game before these systemic changes came into place, so you could end up alienating these players. I guess it really comes down to how well the game is performing month to month, and are there new players being retained, or is it the old guard that are still populating the Tekken world? Personally, I'd agree with Arslan in that major systemic changes are needed for this game to get back to a point where the series was respected by its core audience, but I'm always willing to acknowledge that I could be wrong on that and I'm no longer the core audience. It could be the case that people like me may not outnumber the ones that are arguing against it. It may be a case where the player base has changed. Tekken's in a really weird spot right now because, as Dash Fight said, Tekken has always been a series that refined its mechanics rather than innovated, and Tekken 4 was really the last time outside of Tekken 8 that we really got any real innovation. Tekken 8 actually feels like the biggest departure from the norm because although Tekken 4 added a whole new dimension to the game and rules, for me at the very least, Tekken 4 did not feel like such a massive departure. Even when I go back and play it now, it doesn't really feel like that different from other Tekken games. Sure, it's a little bit more slow, it's a little bit more grounded, the walls are broken, but it still feels very much like Tekken. I've got to say, in all the time that I've been playing Tekken 8, and I have invested quite a bit of time into this game, Tekken 8 feels more in line with a crazy anime fighter. And if I'm being 100% honest with you guys, it might be the biggest departure for the series yet, and I'm not sure it was the right road to go down. That's just my opinion. People also feel this way with Street Fighter 6 and the Drive Rush, or the green slime as some people call it, a neutral braking tool that offers plus frames on moves that would otherwise be unsafe. It's definitely less egregious in Street Fighter, but it's still there and people don't seem completely happy with it, although I don't know to what extent. Not really too involved too much with the Street Fighter community, I just hear whispers here and there. Essentially, I think people just want to play the game without feeling like it's holding their opponent's hands. Flash and pizzazz are all good for all of 2 weeks before people get annoyed. It has to be fun for the defender as well and not just the attacker and the spectator. A common criticism I hear from people is that they feel like they're fighting against the game rather than the player, that the game affords the attacker far too many options and it almost overwhelms the playing experience because the defender just feels like they're not there anymore, like they're not really playing the game. And in my opinion, that reduces the overall playing experience because I should always feel like I'm in control. Now, something else that I want to touch on is that although I understand that new players and old players are not going to agree on this, I don't think it's good to tell people that they're crying about it. Firstly, perceiving a complaint or a criticism about a game or a particular topic on a game as crying really just shows your emotional temperament, and perceiving dialogue around the game that people have been playing for around 20 years as crying really shows your inability to listen. This is a legacy franchise, people are going to have their concerns and we are in the first year. Putting aside people that play this professionally and for money, just sitting down and playing this game, I can completely understand why people are frustrated with it. Being frustrated, however, does not mean you're crying. So for everyone that keeps on saying that Arslan is crying or people are crying online, I don't agree with these people. I think they're just voicing their concerns. It's obviously a franchise people care very deeply about, and as I said, this is a franchise that has historically refined its mechanics, not innovated very much. As long as it's not personal attacks, I think the Tekken base that is unhappy with the game should speak up. Now, I've been playing a lot of Sparking Zero, as you guys can see in the background, and more Sparking Zero content and content creators is showing up on my feed, whether that be Twitter, Instagram or YouTube. I personally love the game. There are definitely things I would change, which I'll be making a video about at a later date, but I really enjoy the game and interacting with the community so far. It is still brand new, things could change, but as it stands, I'm very much enjoying it. That said, there are a fair amount of people in the scene that are unhappy with it and are calling for changes. Are they crying about it? No. Are they ruining my playing experience? Absolutely not. They're just expressing themselves. Stop trying to shut down conversation when you hear something you don't like. Firstly, as we've seen, it is a waste of time because nobody actually takes the advice, and secondly, someone else's opinion on a game you love shouldn't cause you to stop playing it. Now, we're not talking about any serious topics here. When I say stop trying to shut down conversation, we're literally talking about a video game here. It should never be so deep that you want to silence somebody over it. Sonic Fox went on to tweet. Now, there were a lot of people that did not appreciate Sonic Fox's opinion on this, mainly because they only see him as a Mortal Kombat player and not a Tekken player, so he shouldn't be chiming in. Now, my personal grievances with Sonic Fox's behavior in the past, I don't have any problem with him talking about Tekken. I think he's played it enough to give an opinion at the very least, although I've got to say the opinion that he gives here is not really a good one, in my opinion. People were looking at me crazy when I was literally ranting about this the other day on Ninja Killer's stream on why I don't play Tekken 8 anymore. The issue about Mortal Kombat is a character issue where some characters are too strong. The issue with Tekken, in my opinion, is a mechanical issue where legit it's one wrong read into heat burst into next round, and every character universally does that. It's not very fun to deal with. At least with Mortal Kombat, I feel like the mechanics presented to me allow me to deal with most 50-50s and also have second chances when someone makes a Mickey ass read against me with Breaker. It's very easy to reset to neutral very often in Mortal Kombat 1, so I feel it's the most controlled game. Whilst it is true, and you can reset the neutral much more easily because of breakers, I wouldn't say it's solely a character problem in Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat has so many issues that you could dedicate several videos to and actually talk about each one individually in length. We're not going to do that today. We've done that to death. You guys know my stances on Mortal Kombat. The MK criticism well has dried up as far as I'm concerned. There isn't much more that I can say about it. I've already shown multiple ways on how that game is just flawed across the board. I wouldn't even put it in the same conversation as Tekken or Street Fighter at this point, but that is a topic for another day. But on Sonic Fox's tweet, it really comes down to how you get into the 50-50 situation, I think, is the problem here. In a game that has always had over 100 moves per character or or just shy of that, getting caught in really bad mix-ups is not a new thing, and dying very quickly in Tekken is not a new thing either. The difference is the options and the way you get there. In Tekken 8 you are forced to get there a lot of the times. In previous Tekken games, although one combo can land you against the wall and then death very quickly after, it's how you get there that is irritating people. Now a patch has just dropped for Tekken 8 that saw the nerf of some prominent characters like Dragunov, but the general sentiment online is that it's not enough, and having looked at it I'd be inclined to agree. However, given how Tekken 8 has been designed, I don't think it's ever going to be enough. That said, do I think people should just accept it and shut up? Absolutely not. I think people should continue voicing their opinions and getting their points across, and we can see where it goes from there. King J tweeted out in response to Arslan's tweet and he said, "Remember at the very start I stated the very same thing, but I was labelled complaining and crybaby. Happy other players and people are talking up about this. Tekken was once a game about skill, but has now turned into a casino." And then you have Blackheart here saying this patch doesn't really change anything at all. Now FDX has actually been catching some fire surrounding this entire conversation because he tweeted out saying, "I think this is mainly a problem with S tiers. The world's best players fight these S tier characters for 6 to 12 hours every day, so what Arslan is conveying here is probably not comparable to most players' experiences, me included. I wonder how it would feel if everyone was Steve tier." King J responds by saying, "No, it is across the board. Lydia is doing 50-50s in Heat and she is not S tier. This has nothing to do with the world's best players, it is happening with intermediate players as well. Then you can look at Kuma in Heat, Jin, Kazuya, Ling, Lily, Shaheen, Eddie, Yoshi, Asuka, and many more. It's nice to be open-minded and always have a good outlook on things, but I don't agree with that comment at all." FDX then responds to that comment as well as some other comments saying that he is coping and he is shilling for the game, and he responds by saying, "I am not expressing what I'm expressing out of elitism to ignore the regular player. 99% of my content is geared towards regular people. There are a lot of people who will complain about a matchup before learning how to handle certain situations defensively or handle situations in neutral. Most people's complaints would go away if they learned the proper counterplay in neutral, because it often exists outside of find the top 5. Now, whilst it is true that a lot of people complain about things they don't understand, we are basically a year into Tekken 8 and almost everybody shares the same sentiment. Obviously there are people that are pushing back against what Arslan is saying, against what I'm saying, against what King J is saying, but most people that play Tekken seem to have the exact same problems. I don't think it has anything to do with the actual characters, it is to do with the systems in place and the way the characters interact with them. I've got to say, in this instance, FDX is completely wrong. FDX is somebody that I have quite a great deal of respect for in the way he puts his content across, and I do think he's an important voice in the Tekken community, and I do think his content is very informative and very well put together. But in this instance, I think he's completely off. I think he missed the ball on this one completely, and if you ask me, it could be the worst character in the game. Everything that Arslan and King J have expressed in these tweets would still apply. I know that he's not trying to be an elitist, but that is certainly how that tweet would come across. If I didn't know who FDX was, if I wasn't aware of his content and the kind of person that he portrays himself to be on camera, I would think that's elitism. In this instance, I think it's just a bad take. I don't think he's trying to be an elitist, and once again, the problems conveyed by Arslan, Ash, and King J are the problems that the beginner player are facing, that the intermediate player is facing, and that the pro level player is facing. Right now, I would have to agree, Tekken 8 does feel like a casino fighter. It does feel like you are rolling the dice a lot of the time. Of course, it is a competitive fighter, but it is a little bit harder to take it seriously when one mistake means that you are basically dead. And again, it has been that way in previous Tekken games. You could even argue that my favourite Tekken game of all time, Tekken Tag Tournament 2, was even worse for this, but I would argue that the route to getting to the 50-50 was nowhere near as bad as it is in Tekken 8. I should not be stuck in place when the follow-up from the aggressor could kill me. I should have my options, I should have all my faculties in check with my character so that I can move around. And I feel like that is what's pissing off the competitive community. Now, from the casual standpoint, this is a godsend. To lock somebody in place and force your attack on them is excellent, because you don't really have to think about the complexities of what might happen when the opponent reads you, because they don't have the opportunity to really read you, at least not to the degree that Tekken players want. You can just enforce whatever mix-up you want, and even if they block it, a sizable amount of chip damage is going to come off your character. So essentially what has happened here is that you have a game that has had a rich legacy for many years, a legacy that has gone on longer than some of its player base have even been alive, and with this drastic drastic change has brought in new players but made older players feel alienated, and that is where the divide is. There are a lot of new mechanics in this game that favor people that have never played Tekken before, so in that regard they accomplished what they set out to do. In doing so though, the players that you had in the lead up to this for the 20 plus years that Tekken has been around and popular, you now have a situation where they don't feel like they're really playing Tekken anymore. And so I don't really know where the Tekken team are going to take this game. It's already been riddled with controversy surrounding monetization. It's already got a very laughable ranked mode where cheaters are not punished accordingly and people have their time wasted, which is a problem that the Sparking Zero community are being welcome to. Sparking Zero and Tekken have the exact same problem. It is even worse over on the Sparking Zero side of things because of how many people that are casual that play Sparking Zero, although you could argue because of the way demotions work in Tekken that it's actually worse. But either way, Tekken is not in a good spot right now. We are going into season 2 very soon. We will be there before we know it, and that's really going to be a make or break time for this game. Now I know there's going to be the people that feel like Arslan, Ash or King J or myself are whinging and crying, and that's fine, you know. I can't really engage with 10-year-olds online anyway, that would be weird. But for the rest of us, I do think the conversation is very interesting because there is a massive split between the community right now and how people feel about Tekken. I have not completely written the game off yet. It's going to be here for a long time by the looks of it. I'm very interested to see where it goes, and I'm always willing to give it the benefit of the doubt. I think Tekken has earned that. I've been playing Tekken, as I said, since the very beginning, since its inception, and it has earned that goodwill. It is burning it very slowly, but it has earned that goodwill. So I'm looking forward to seeing who the new character is that comes out for Tekken 8 and then where season 2 might take us. Anyways guys, thank you so much for watching the video. Let me know what you guys all think about this in the comment section below. Do you feel like Arslan Ash is whinging again because he lost, or do you think he has a legitimate point? Take care, have a good day, and peace.